lower this morning following reports that China doubts the possibility of a long-term trade deal with President Trump. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down about 6 points. Dow futures down 50. NASDAQ futures down 5.5. The DAX in Germany, little change. 10-year Treasury up 11/30 seconds. Yield 1.73%. Yield on the 2-year 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.3% or 71 cents at 54.35 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.9% or $13 to 15.0970 an ounce. The euro 1.1154 against the dollar. British pound 1.2950 and the yen at 108.24. And U.S. consumer spending trailing forecasts in September, while weekly applications for unemployment benefits rose more than projected. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Greatly appreciate it. It has become a tradition for Bloomberg Radio, and we are thrilled for Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 FM Boston. Pre-game coverage on Saturday, Dartmouth against Harvard. Coach Murphy joins us now from Harvard. Coach, you were quoted in the New York Times last year on the miracle that is Dartmouth football. They haven't won at Harvard, I believe, in 16 years, something like that. And here they are on top of the Ivy League. I have them scoring 44 points per game. What do you do to defend against Dartmouth this Saturday?
Well, to your point, guys, no discernible weaknesses in this football team. In the 26 years I've been at Harvard, absolutely the best Dartmouth team I've ever seen. Number one in the nation in scoring offense, number one in the nation in scoring defense, tremendous on special teams, and they appear to be a team that has very few weaknesses. And to that end, we just got to play, obviously, really hard, tough, physical football. We've got to be able to find some way to stop the run. We've got to be able to make sure that every opportunity we get, we cash in points. And at the end of the day, we've got to do a great job with ball security. This is a terrific football team.
So, Coach, you had a tough loss, Ivy League loss last weekend at Princeton. What did you and your team, what are you working on this week to get ready for Dartmouth?
Well, other than the outcome, I was really pleased with the attitude and effort of our team. We're down 10-0 in the first 10 minutes of the game. We clawed back to a 14-10 lead, and with 4 minutes to go in the game, we're down 23-21, and we've got a second down and 2 at the 38-yard line. I'm absolutely convinced we're going to pull this out. So it was a great effort against another outstanding team, a team that's won 16 straight games, but we just didn't get it done. We just got to take the next step. We've got to eliminate mistakes. We've got to eliminate turnovers. We've got to continue to play great run defense, and we probably got to get a few breaks too.
Coach Murphy, every parent listening to this is worried about the grind of school sports. And Dartmouth, and you were quoted in the article in Sports in support of Coach Stevens, is the idea of not tackling during practices during the week. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the revolution in results that Dartmouth brought by going through practice, but going through it with a lighter mode?
Well, I think it's brilliant, and Buddy and I have agreed on this for a long time. As you know, we go way back to high school together, and I think when the league, we finally voted on it, it was a unanimous decision by the Ivy League coaches. I think Buddy's done a tremendous job in this realm, but it certainly was something that we were all in on. And besides the obvious long-term effects of doing it in a good way with non-contact practices, it just makes you a healthier team. To me, it's a no-brainer. We've been doing it this way probably for the last 20 years. Not to necessarily jump up on any particular pulpit, but definitely to have the healthiest team available, as we get late into the season.
Does it go to the pro game? I mean, to pro hockey? And I understand hockey's less checked now and they're hypersensitive about concussion, or to the NFL. Are you guys leading something that we're going to see in 10 or 20 years?
Well, I think we are definitely doing a good job with that, and there's a lot of people to thank, but you got to give the NFL and the NHL credit. The game that is played now is not remotely the incredibly physical, kind of crazy stuff game that it was 20 years ago. Everybody has modified. I think everybody understands the realities, and that we want to make this the safest game possible. I'm sure when I was a kid watching the Big Bad Bruins playing, there were 3 fights a night, and you loved it. The fans loved it, but You don't see that happening now in the NHL as one example. If you look at the things that the NFL, the NCAA, and the Ivy League have done to mitigate these issues, it's not remotely the same game in terms of the incredibly physical, tough game. And I mean that in terms of the culture, in terms of the rules, in terms of the practice regimen, and in terms of sports medicine. On all those issues, we've come a long way and will continue to do so.
Coach, you've been at Harvard now, I guess, 26 years, and you give us a sense of how the quality of play has evolved as the practice schedule and as a practice, the hitting has declined. Talk to us about the quality of play you've noticed over the Ivy League.
Well, to your point, the quality is better than ever. It's a more athletic game. It's a more exciting game. We're attracting arguably the best athletes we've attracted in the last 25 years. I think people have realized that, not to, again, try to promote our league, but, if you want to get a world-class education and play Division I football in a really sensible way, I think the Ivy League is a great venue to do it.
Yeah. Coach Murphy, thank you so much. Really going to be interesting, really a game with national interest. Dartmouth, Harvard, look for that. And, of course, we'll have full coverage in Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 FM, AM rather. Thrilled that you're with us in Boston with pregame coverage starting Saturday. 12:45 p.m. To me, it's just fascinating, the idea of no tackle, no check. Yeah,
it's amazing. You think, talk about the pros, they figure, they haven't had that much hitting, and the two-a-days are gone, so even though the pros are evolving.
Remember two-a-days?
Two-a-days in August down in Mississippi or something, how those, just extraordinary. So, the game, as Coach said, is clearly changed, but in his opinion, the quality of play is, as good as ever in the Ivy League.
I would say it's different. In hockey, it's different. You think of Terry O'Reilly, the wonderful force of the Boston Bruins. He couldn't keep up with the skaters today. It's a different game.
Yes,
I'm not sure it's a better game.
Yeah,
but I will say, no question, it's light speed faster as well. Futures at -4 down. Futures at -38. 6 minutes away from the open. We'll see what some of these tech stocks do as well. Please stay with us worldwide. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stock futures are slipping just ahead of the opening bell. S&P futures down 6, NASDAQ futures down 6, Dow futures are down 52 points. Crude oil is also slumping, lower by 1.2% at $54.38 a barrel. U.S. consumer spending trailed forecasts in September, while weekly applications for unemployment benefits rose more than projected, offering a note of on the economy as the Fed signals a pause from interest rate cuts. Shares of Apple are higher in pre-market trading after the company projected fiscal first quarter revenue that beat analyst estimates, signaling a strong holiday period and solid demand for iPhone 11 models, new services like Apple TV Plus, and upgraded hardware, including its AirPods headphones. And Facebook is proving it can weather a harsher regulatory spotlight. Third quarter sales beat estimates, rising 29%, and monthly average users hit 2.45 billion, matching projections. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to see spectacular coral reefs and white sand beaches. Fly from London Gatwick to Mauritius with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £949 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
No one wants to get caught in the cold in London. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to avoid a big chill to your wallet. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty. And now we can even quote by video call after work or weekends at a time that suits you. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
I've got a great idea, but none of the gear. Whatever project you're planning, head to the B&Q Tool Shop. Get hands-on in-store with our wide range of tools and explore everything from saws to sanders. Our helpful team will make sure you find the right tool for the job. The B&Q Tool Shop. You can do it when you B&Q it.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Swagger of a perfect dunk, the rush of a three made from all the way downtown, the adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane of the rim, going right corner three, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow, along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. The S&P 500 that'll change at the open, down a point at 3045. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.1% or 28 points to 27,157. And the Nasdaq's up 0.1%, up 10 points to 8314. 10-year Treasury up 10/30 seconds, yield 1.73%. Yield on the 2-year 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil up 0.9% or $12.90. Oh, actually, excuse me. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.9%, down 50 cents at $54.55 a barrel.
Moscow, their first mistake of the year.
That's pretty good.
It's better than me, dear. It's better than me.
COMEX gold is up 0.8%. It's up $12.50 at $15.0880 an ounce. The euro 1.1149 against the dollar. The yen 108.31. That was my Halloween costume, Tom. That was my.
I'm afraid to ask, Ms. Moscow, what are you going as? We've got in the studio today Captain Marvel and Spider-Man, and the fellow you children have been abused with planning for 8 months. One's going as a cracked porcelain doll, and the other one's a demon or something from Goethe or Faust or something. What's happening in the Moscow household today?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to be Piggy and Gerald with my daughter.
Wow.
Have you ever read those books?
Solid, yeah.
I know, yeah.
Karen, thank you so much. Fun. Karen Moscow, thank you so much with a valued, complete data check that she does every day. I got to bring this out, Paul, and then you can bring in our esteemed guest, Ellen Zentner, who's been so good about economic slowdown. She just models Q4 GDP, it's up from 1.7 to 1.8. But Paul, that's 6 months as a general statement of 1.9, 1.8. That doesn't get it done, does it?
That doesn't
probably
get it
means
done.
Apple's not going to do well.
I'm just looking at this stock. I think, let's call it an all-time high here, Tom. 1.1 trillion. Stock's up another 1.4%. So I guess the street likes what they saw last night. John Butler covers Apple for Bloomberg Intelligence, and John joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So, John, give us your take from the Apple numbers last night. They look pretty solid all around.
So I think you were talking about the optimism around the stock, and I think all that centers around what's happening on the margin. And I would say on the margin, so many things are getting better for Apple, right? Their China business was better in the quarter. They were really very optimistic about how things should trend there without providing specifics. But I think they're right. Some of the tough trade talk has started to die down a bit. We'll see if we get a deal or not. But so far, Apple has dodged most of those bullets, not all of them. And Tom, you look like you want to ask something.
I want to know if I need to go to the AirPods, because do you have the new AirPods yet?
Not yet.
You're the cutting edge guy.
And he can actually expense those. You can go out there and buy them inexpensive.
Oh, Redo called me today. Redo said, get me a pair while you're there.
I did the handoff of the legacy AirPods to my wife a few days ago. No kidding.
The dreaded handed off to the wife trick.
Yes.
That's how I would never think
that's
of doing
smart.
that. I would never do that. John Butler, would you explain why a toothpaste company trades at a 20% PE premium to Apple Computer of Cupertino?
I don't get it. Who's the toothpaste company?
It's a big famous toothpaste company. They're trading at a 24 multiple. Apple's just below a 20 multiple. Why is that?
I think people haven't quite gotten the fact that Apple is a cyclical growth company now, right? They're still looking at it as expecting that hyper growth that we had.
They look at it like it's Wayne
ago.
Labs.
That's going back.
That is going back. No, I remember Wayne Labs.
They're looking at it like it's Wayne Labs. It's not.
I think the show me story for Apple is getting services to where they need to be, which is a little bit higher percent of revenue, getting those other iPhone products. Right, a tipping point, exactly.
So how are they doing on that front? Because this is a major change for the company, for the investor base to say, hey, this is no longer just simply a phone company and a device company, but we're also a services company, and that's actually the future growth of this company. How's a company in terms of achieving that, and how is the investor base in terms of, okay, I'll start paying a multiple for that?
So they are doing very well on that front when you consider the size of the company and some of the challenges in expanding that services portfolio. The latest foray is into content and streaming. They have the bank book to really make a go of it there, so I'm expecting big things. In terms of launch content, I think it's a little bit light, but they'll scale that up very quickly. And then if you just look at the sleeper in this business, it is the wearables, home, and accessories segment, which, if my numbers are correct, delivered almost or just over 50% growth year on year in the quarter. So put that segment, growth segment, together with services, and it's moving the top line in the latest quarter over 3% currency adjusted when iPhone actually fell. Right. And so they get an A for making that shift in the business. But I think it's going to take time to be sustainable quarter in and quarter out.
The holiday season's a big deal, and then we'll go through and is there like Apple 12 in the pipeline? Is it
I think the big phone coming next year is going to be the 5G iPhone.
Okay,
and
fine.
the supplier
That's
community that is going to be major.
Yes.
Major.
Can you guys explain why? Come on, 5G.
Major, not just for Apple, by the way, but for AT&T.
Why? What is 5G going to do?
So 5G is for you and me. It's going to provide much higher data rates, right? So
what does that mean?
You can download your movie in like 0.6 seconds.
Tom, do you want a phone that's 10 times faster than what you have now? I would.
Do I need it?
Particularly,
you're a big streamer.
as devices evolve, right? Microsoft now has a dual screen.
Do I have to pay more to be 10 times faster?
Oh, yeah.
To the phone companies, right? Oh, I'm serious.
I think the answer is probably not much, maybe $5 to $10.
Are we going to set up in a two-tier market with 5G for, guys like you, the tech Turks, and mere mortals like me will have something slower because we're like, really?
In the beginning, it's going to look like the launch of 4G back in 2008.
And
it took a couple of years to sort of catch. Believe it or not, the iPhone was the first real use case for 4G. So if you look at 4G subs, they took off on the
Does he know that the only
introduction
reason
of the iPhone 4, which was the first 4G iPhone.
Michael Barr said, get Butler, because we just want to know if the new AirPods are worth having.
I finally bought an 8mm camera. That's how technology is.
Laser disc bar, they called them. What? The new AirPod thing, I'm getting ginormous reviews from the young millennial crews. They're like raving about this product.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised they haven't come out with it sooner, in the sense that the big thing is they've integrated noise cancellation into the AirPods. And they changed the form factor, so they sit a little more securely.
Form factor,
yes, that's it. Yep, that's fit. It fit better
Is
here.
Fitbit, the look and feel
of. Now, who's buying? Yes, that's right. They are buying.
Is Google? No, that's rumored.
Yeah,
right?
it's rumored. That's right.
I mean, Google's that far behind all this stuff you're yapping about, right?
On that front, yes.
I mean,
so
Google has search. I get that. What else do they have?
Google has their hands in everything.
But are they third place in everything?
Yeah, I mean, at their core, they're an advertising company, really. I'm sorry, a search company, and that's what they do best. So
I was in the Apple store, one of my family soirees over the weekend. The place is packed, and when I noticed, John Butler, we got to go. Why do we have to go? We have to go. John Butler. We'll do this again with Mr. Butler. It's going to come back with his AirPod review, which we'll have for you in a bit. John Butler, Bloomberg Intelligence expert on Apple. Red on the screen, negative 41 on the Dow. This is Bloomberg. Please stay with us.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. An important vote is coming up in the House today. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle will vote on a move to make rules to govern the impeachment process as it moves to a more public phase. Former GOP House Speaker Newt Gingrich called the inquiry baloney.
The next phase of hearings up under a rigged set of rules in which the president still has limited ability and in which even the Republican ranking member, according to this resolution, will have very limited capacity.
Democrats are confident they will reach near unity in the vote. House investigators were heard next this morning from the man who until recently was President Donald Trump's top advisor for Russian and European affairs. Tim Morrison had been with the National Security Council until leaving his post the day before his scheduled testimony in the inquiry. Morrison is expected to be asked today to explain that sinking feeling he described to a colleague when Trump demanded that Ukraine investigate Joe Biden and meddling in the 2016 election. A wind-whipped outbreak of wildfires outside Los Angeles threatened thousands of homes and horse ranches. It forced the smoky evacuation of elderly patients in wheelchairs. It narrowly bypassed the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Tom?
And Michael, thanks so much. Yields come in. I haven't talked much about yields today. 173 in the 10-year, 2.21% of the 30-year bond, both in 4, even 5 basis points. This is Bloomberg.
The ring of fire. Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
This is a Bloomberg.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
So it's not fair. Self-service checkouts. Let's forget the fact you're now working on a supermarket checkout. As soon as you put anything past the scanner and placed it down on that bagging area, you literally just nudge. Literally, a blueberry falls out the bag. And it's going, thanks to getting assistance. You need assistance. And now you've got to wait there for hours because everyone else is moving things. It's just not fair.
If you want fair, you want fibre broadband from TalkTalk. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
There's It's Halloween happy. Listening to Headbangers happy. There's no traffic on the M1 happy. Trick-or-treating tonight happy. There's only 55 days until Christmas happy. It's almost lunchtime happy. Getting your tyres changed over your lunch break with a free coffee happy. You get that kind of happy from QuickFit in Watford. Book online now at quickfit.com and drive away happy. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations,
Live commercial-free news,
and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game.
Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
The full House will vote on the impeachment inquiry this morning. Correspondent Suzanne Malveaux explains how the vote will proceed.
It is called officially House Resolution 660. It is going before the full House of Representatives. And what will happen first, Democrats will take 5 minutes, 1 minute apiece, and Republicans will take 5 minutes. And then it will be open for full debate for about an hour or so, 30 minutes for the Democrats, 30 minutes for the Republicans.
A new wildfire has broken out in California. This one in San Bernardino, torching at least 4 homes and forcing evacuations. Washington, D.C. has a World Series champion.
3-2. Here it is! The Washington Nationals are world champions for the first time in
Fox Sports' Joe Buck. The 1924 Washington Senators won the World Series. The Nationals beat the Astros 6-2 in Game 7 in Houston. I'm John Trout.
deals, courts, and world leaders.
When you served on the National Security Council staff, is this something people modeled?
It's all in Balance of Power with David Weston.
How bad an attack was this?
Weekdays at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. This update brought to you by SEI. With a 50-year history of innovations, SEI's outsourced solutions help achieve lasting success for investment managers, asset owners, private banks, and independent advisors. Learn more at SEIC.com. U.S. stocks are lower this morning amid a mixed batch of earnings and renewed concern that a trade deal with China remains elusive. The S&P 500 down 0.1% down 3 points to 3043. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.2% or 61 points to 27,125. NASDAQ little change as it's 83.05. 10-year Treasury up 16.30 yield 1.71%. Yield on the 2-year 1.55%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.25% down 70 cents at 54.36 a barrel. COMEX gold up 1.1% or $16.10 at 15.1270 an ounce. The euro 1.1152 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.16. U.S. consumer spending trailing forecasts in September, while weekly applications for unemployment benefits rose more than projected. We are watching shares of Facebook and Apple. Facebook is up 4%. Apple is up 1.6%. Both posted upbeat results after the close yesterday. Wayfair is down almost 15% this morning after its third quarter loss per share was wider than analysts were looking for. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much. Looking at equities, and we've been going blue chip and all the big names and all that. So I got an email in and said, can you talk about something we do every day that's like more interesting than Apple. We can do that with a guy with a target of 300 on Apple, very optimistic. But we've sort of, done a good job on that. Paul, why don't we talk about what we use every day, which is in New York, Uber, Lyft, Juno, the cabs in London, and the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dan Ives is good on this.
We had some numbers out of Lyft last night. I guess they weren't as bad as maybe people feared. The stock's up a little bit. Dan Ives covers all things technology for Wedbush. Joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So, Dan, boy, let's talk to the ride-sharing companies. Just a wild IPO process, underperformance since then. I would argue that the challenge of those two IPOs kind of changed the IPO market. Investors went from going, I'll buy growth at any price, to now you got to show me a path to profitability. Did Lyft do anything last night to assure investors that they have at least a path to profitability?
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, when you think about Uber and Lyft, that was just the Fort Sumter moment for public and IPO market. And obviously, WeWork, which are the straw that broke the camel's back. When you look at Lyft, they're basically having to pivot on the fly. They're having to move up profitability, I'd say 2 years ahead of expectations, because you see what the stock's doing. And I think that's really the pressure, what they need to do and what they showed last night.
What we're going to do here, folks, and we're going to take this to a pro level, and we can, of course, do that with Mr. Ives at Wedbush. I look at two vectors on the FA screen of the Bloomberg. Let's talk revenue first. It's geometric, 208%, 103%, 64%, 28%. That vector points modeling mid-double-digit growth X number of years out. How do they get away with the tech hoopla of growth if their revenue vector's showing me a lot lower revenue growth in the future?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think so far what you've seen coming out of the model, at least the last few quarters, they're basically beating street expectations anywhere by 10 to 15% really every quarter.
On revenue growth.
So what really needs to happen is, to your point, those revenue growth numbers, I would say, need to be probably 20, 30% higher than what
exactly. Where do they settle out? In your model right now, where does Uber, Lyft, all this other malarkey we use, where does their revenue growth model settle out as a terminal value?
I think when you do, after all the mathematical gymnastics, you're basically somewhere at about 25% grower for the next, I would view, 5 to 7 years.
You're going to model them at 25% grower?
So in terms of where they can grow, in terms of Lyft domestically, I think they can grow 25% as a steady state growth.
Is that because Afterthought's got a Lyft XL
exactly.
for trick-or-treating?
She's got the gold XL card. So, Dan, one of the things, to get to profitability quicker, they have to grow revenue faster and somehow bring their costs down, and that's the subsidies and that's the marketing and things like that. What did they say on the conference call about their ability to do that maybe at a faster rate than they'd initially thought.
Yeah, and they hinted this a few weeks ago at a conference, but they're really thinking 2021 in terms of profitability. But I think if you look at the model, I think they could hit profitability maybe first half 2021 and even maybe late next year in terms of where they're trending. Because right now, public investors are talking, and you see it in the stock. And Lyft recognizes what they need to do. But look, this is a tough balancing act. So when you talk about risk in the name, as Tom talked about as well, it's going to be a challenge because you're going to need to put the brakes on growth, cost, especially when you have Uber spending on everything they can, and that continues to be the big risk.
So is Uber kind of saying we're not going to play that rush to profitability game? So are they a little bit different in terms of their outlook than Lyft?
They are, and I think they have not handled it as well as Lyft has. And I think next week you'll see how Uber reports, but then they have that major overhang in terms of stock.
You're making common sense on the revenue vector out 3, 4, 5 years, and I totally see on the Bloomberg screen your EBITDA vector down the income statement, that profitability measure at the end of 21, 22. I'll buy it. The CapEx vector ain't there. They're like Netflix. They're burning through money versus the revenue dynamic and the EBITDA dynamic. Don't they have to get disciplined and change that?
Yeah. I mean, they really have to go from teenagers to adults in terms of the way that they run the model. And I think that's why for investors to really see the stock re-rated, they need to hit all that trifecta.
Excuse me, what you got there, folks, is massive Dan Ives jargon. Re-rated, Paul, is get back to the IPO price.
That's right. You know, I'm looking at just looking at Uber here, 26 buy, 12 hold. So it seems like the street, by and large, is still kind of saying, I think these companies can make that pivot to profitability sooner than maybe we initially signed up for. Is there a risk that that these companies can't execute? What do you think? Is that a material risk that they just won't be able to execute?
Yeah, look at Grubhub the other day. I mean,
talk about that. Brief us on that.
It's a good example when you look at just what's happening with DoorDash and ultimately with food delivery. Take rates have come down. You have AB5 legislation out there.
What's AB5 legislation?
And that's the California legislation, which is actually going next week.
That you can't order pizza 4 days in a row?
What's written? Well, maybe that too. But also that's really about them deeming employees as contractors. Right. Yeah. That's a big risk. But look at Grubhub. Right. They had to spend. Okay. You saw them cut 70%, and the stock had the natural split.
Do you guys do this a lot? This call up a restaurant, seamless Grubhub takeout thing? Do you do it? We're addicted to it. Okay, my vet bill's calling, and that's a dog, Dan. I look at it on $1 that I spend in these things. How much are they losing?
I mean, on average, for every $1, they're losing about 10 cents. Is the best way to think about it. So right now,
then why?
Because they're taking that profit and reinvesting it in more of the resources.
Where's the profit?
Platform.
What you said they're taking the profit? Where is it?
They're reinvesting back in the platform.
Oh, so the dollar that you spent, Tom, their profit margin is 10 cents?
Yeah, if you look at their profit margin, let's call it 10 cents, and then what they're doing is they're taking that 10 cents and they're spending that and another 10 cents.
Okay.
And that's why right now the fundamental issue, look at what's happening in ride sharing across the board. There's more and more pressure, not just on the smaller players, but from Uber and everything else. And where an advantage for Lyft, they're not in that business.
They're not in it. Exactly. They're the true pure play. Isn't that they scream to be taken out by a major player, don't they? Because they're a true pure play. Look, I mean, their consultants can get around that.
I would be shocked. I would be shocked if Lyft stays at this valuation. I'd be shocked in the next year or two if it's a standalone company or if it's not.
Okay, what ratio right now do you use for those advisors of a big company that wants to take out Lyft? What's the price to sales? What's the one that matters?
I view EV to rev basis in terms of where it's traded.
EV to rev. You go back to
so I go to,
folks. This is we love Ives when he comes in.
CFA 1.
It's like CFA 4. You know, it's great. Continue.
No, you're too kind. But
EVA to EBITDA?
Because I view EV, especially for companies like this, for listeners, like a company like this that's not profitable.
Right.
You have to normalize growth, and you can't really value it on their side. Probably you got to value it on revenues. Yep. So many on the street, even in PE or any strategics, they view EV to rev. If you look at it, from a takeout perspective here, you're probably looking back.
This is, folks, enterprise value to revenue. This is in Vivo's classic book, Smoke and Mirrors.
That's right. So who would take out like a Lyft, given that it's still losing money? Would it be a strategic buyer or a financial buyer?
Yeah, I think that's where, like, look, I mean, they would have to definitely start to turn the corner in terms of profitability. And then, look, I mean, everything else they've invested in has lost money. They might as well just call SoftBank as well.
That's what I was going to say.
There we go.
Paul's, you're looking at this responsibly and rationally.
Yep.
They're going to find somebody dumb enough to dive into this. Stop it.
I personally think Paul and we should start a restaurant, and then after like a month or two, just call SoftBank. Maybe they'll buy it for a 50% premium.
Dan, thank you so much. Really, really important perspective. Mr. Ives with Wedbush, and I really want to emphasize his Apple report today. With back against the wall, Mr. Cook and Company come out swinging, and he launches to 300. That's a formal, so is that out 1 year?
That's 1 year, and I think...
no, we want his mic off when he says that. We don't want to take that.
Yeah, that's 1 year, and I think we sit here 6 to 9 months from now, that stock has a 3 in front of it.
Nice. Run out there, Tom. Both
Dan, Rich Greenfield yesterday was classic. Were you on the call yesterday and you said good quarter? When they picked you up for the question, did you say good quarter?
Don't ever pay me with that brush. I'm not one of
Okay.
Very
Greenfield
good.
was classic with Walter Piecyk out there with all the things people say at the conference calls.
Of course, good quarter. And the best is when a stock's down 50%.
Good quarter.
And someone comes on, like maybe they were drinking something, like, guys, great quarter.
Okay, Dan Ives, thanks so much. We are produced by people with Halloween costumes they're going to want to forget tomorrow.
It's another Thursday afternoon. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Bookings and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
The world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the municipal bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
cash, if you're looking at Treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good Thursday morning from New York City to our worldwide audience amid a slew of earnings. We're going to focus a little bit on economics. We had the FOMC meeting yesterday. We're going to recap that. And we're going to take a look to the all-important jobs number coming out tomorrow. But first, let's go to John Tucker of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
All right. Not very comforting. U.S. consumer comfort suffered its biggest weekly decline in more than 8 years, Paul. The Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index falling 2.4 points. This is the most since March of 2011. Well, the major averages, they're lower this morning. Chinese officials have warned they won't budge on the thorniest trade issues. Though President Trump did ease the blow a little this morning by signaling a signing ceremony for a partial deal with China will happen in November. Steve Prosciutto at Mizuho Securities says nobody should be shocked by the latest trade developments.
Well, there's clearly a shift that's taking place in global production and global manufacturing, and it's not surprising to see that a long-term deal with China would be much more difficult to bring about than a short-term deal.
Well, you mentioned earnings. Apple and Facebook, two of the four biggest U.S. companies, rising after their earnings report. And that's keeping the major averages from declining anymore. S&P 500 down 10 right now, 3,036. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 112 points lower. We're at 27,074. And the Nasdaq Composite Index 20 points lower. That is at 8,283. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
John Tucker, thank you so much. Let's get a check of those market drivers brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, offering hands-on learning in the largest makerspace in New Jersey for those working in manufacturing and mechatronics. More at njit.edu/manufacturing. Joining us here, Dave Wilson, Bloomberg stocks editor in our Interactive Broker Studios. Let's start with trade. That really is the big dominating theme of the morning, the idea that China is not really seeing the likelihood of a long-term deal that they could potentially strike with President Trump. Some really interesting details from our Bloomberg News team focusing on phase 1 and phase 2 and the disagreements of how to get to phase 2. How much is that driving the narrative today?
Well, it's certainly not helping matters, Lisa. You look at the main industry groups in the S&P 500, 11 of them. You see industrial stocks, the second worst performers, only energy producers doing worse. So, you talk about an area that's affected by trade, and certainly the industrial companies come to mind right away. I will say, though, we had kind of an interesting example out of Wayfair, the online home furnishings retailer. They came out and said 90% of their Chinese suppliers had raised prices. And let's face it, going into the holiday shopping season, you don't want to be in a position where you have to raise prices on your end to compensate for what your suppliers are doing. Because, let's face it, only two things can happen in that context. You raise prices and you lose sales, or you don't raise prices and there go your profit margins. So, that's the kind of issue companies are going to have to face as they look forward and these trade concerns linger.
Well, we had some good tech numbers out last night. So the tech companies are doing their best to help the market. Apple, Facebook, kind of put up some good numbers across the board. We had John Butler in here this morning, and he was just saying pretty much across the board for Apple, pretty solid. And Facebook seems to be just kind of pushing off the concerns about the regulatory overhang. So the tech stocks are doing their
tech and communication services.
That's right.
If you want to define it the way that S&P does, and the Facebook kind of fits into that category, and Apple's sort of moving in that direction to some extent as well with their emphasis on services. Stocks. If you look at the S&P 500, it'd be down a whole lot more or at least substantially more, if not for those two companies. At the moment, you're looking at a 0.3% decline. It works out to about 11 points. You put together Apple and Facebook, that's another 3.5. So you'd be, closer to a 0.5% drop. But it's enough to at least, provide some support for stocks. Of course, you think about technology and its leading role in the market over time, the last decade plus of this bull market. And, to have those numbers come through, at least it's kind of consistent with that performance.
It's Halloween. It's
yes,
Thursday.
it is.
I would love to get a sense of the answer to this existential question hanging over the market right now. Are you excited?
I'm just waiting.
Yeah. Well, we have a statistic so far of the S&P 500 companies that have reported earnings for the third quarter. 75% have beat, which is above the 5-year average of 72%. Does this matter when it's all about lowering the bar more and more ahead of earnings?
Good question, especially considering the other day the number was more like 80%. What it comes down to is what do you get out of that in terms of actual earnings growth? Do you get earnings growth when you look at the S&P 500? And it's still very much an open question, because the last number I saw suggested it was going to be a 2.8% drop in profit for the S&P 500 in the third quarter. By the time you get all the numbers out, it may be somewhere around zero. But, you can talk about the percentage beating estimates all you want, but at the end of the day, it's not beating estimates that dictates whether, investors are going to want to pay more for a company. It's what do the earnings look like down the line? And, we have had some concerns on that score and also some optimism. I mean, you look at Kraft Heinz.
Oh, that's right where I was going.
Absolutely. Biggest gain in the S&P 500, up more than 10%. Now, this is a stock that's had, some pretty substantial moves after earnings the last few quarters. The problem is they've all been down.
Okay, I have learned so much about Paul Sweeney through his attention to Kraft Heinz.
Yes.
About your childhood, about what your culinary preferences are. What was it, mac and cheese growing up?
Sure, absolutely. Why
Everything?
not? But you look at Kraft Heinz, there's a stock that you think about these great brands that are just, everybody's kind of grown up with, and the stock's still down 27%. They brought in a new CEO trying to turn it around, breathe some life into these brands. And I remember, he announcing recently, I've been in this job for a while. I still don't have a turnaround plan. Stock got crushed, but here's a little bit of life maybe for this company.
A little bit. Of course, they've been through so much, and let's face it, the brands that younger people are growing up with today are not necessarily the same brands that we grew up with. And that's an issue for Kraft Heinz and for a lot of other consumer product companies. There's been a shift over time, and it's a matter of being able to adjust to that. And, Kraft Heinz had that multi-billion-dollar write-off in February, to try and kind of clear house. So, yeah, you're seeing some improvement, but it's from a relatively low base, you might say, and there's a long way to go. And in fact, Kraft Heinz even acknowledges that they're not performing the way they would like at this point.
I will say that as a parent, if I were to serve my children, mac and cheese whiz, anywhere near, an Upper West Side school, I think that I'd be called, ACS. But right. I am looking right now at the
And ACS, for those who are not so enlightened?
Administration of Children's Services.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know. Sorry.
That perhaps, it's a good question. Thank you. I don't like acronyms. You call me out, which is great. I'm looking right now at the total debt picture, $32.3 billion from the acquisition, the overhang. And this is sort of one of the big issues here. And we're seeing sort of the tale of two types of companies, where you see the ones that levered up big time that are trying to reduce that, AT&T, and then you got Kraft Heinz, which still hasn't been able to justify the acquisition with growth in sales.
What it comes down to is that leverage is great when you're doing well, and when you're not, it can really come back to bite you, and Kraft Heinz has been an example of the latter.
Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thanks so much. We went from tech to cheese whiz, and that's kind of
that's kind of where we're at right now.
Existential questions
Happy
about
Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. You went existential questions about, and I went right to cheese whiz. So, but anyway, yeah, it's good to see a good day for the folks at Kraft Heinz. Good day for technology after those strong results out of Apple and Facebook as well. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. to Nathan Hager for world and national headlines. Nathan.
Paul, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is asking all Democratic lawmakers to come to the House floor in a show of solidarity ahead of a historic vote to affirm the impeachment proceedings against President Trump. Debate on that resolution is underway. Democrat Jim McGovern.
Madam Speaker, this is a sad day for our country. Over 230 years ago, when the founders of our country wrote the Constitution, they entrusted us with the gift of self-government. But they knew the persistence of this gift was not assured.
Today's vote is expected to break along party lines, and it won't stop closed-door hearings. Today, the three committees are hearing from Tim Morrison. He was President Trump's top advisor on Europe and Russia until he resigned yesterday. Lawmakers plan to ask about the sinking feeling Morrison told a colleague he had after President Trump asked Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden and the 2016 election. North Korea has fired 2 short-range projectiles into its eastern sea. These are the first weapons tests since nuclear talks with the U.S. stalled. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had given the U.S. until the end of the year to come up with mutually acceptable terms. Analysts say the North could ramp up its demonstrations ahead of that deadline. In Southern California, 2 new wildfires have broken out in the Inland Empire region east of Los Angeles. The San Bernardino County Fire Department says about 490 homes and 1,300 people are under evacuation orders on the northern edge. At least 4 homes have been seen burning as that fire grows to 200 acres in neighboring Riverside County, California. 3 homes and 2 outbuildings have been destroyed by another 75-acre fire. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok. On Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
To see something far away, you can either get a powerful telescope or you can go there.
Talk about export numbers because they've been quite shocking. Korea, we saw Singapore, Japan too.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
How should investors be positioning?
When you take a look at the consumers in China, it remains challenging.
We go there.
To what extent is access to cheap credit part of the equation?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg is excited to convene the Year Ahead Summit on November 7th in New York City. Speakers include Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg, award-winning actor, producer, and businesswoman Sarah Jessica Parker, TPG co-CEO Jim Coulter, and CVS Health CEO Larry Merlo. Supporting sponsors, Pfizer, Workday, Hennessy Paradis Imperial. Participating sponsor, Invesco QQQ. Learn more at BloombergLive.com/TYA. Register with code RADIO.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV. Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto-renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Oh no. 1 kebab, 4 cabs, 3 karaoke booths.
But really?
You can't always recall what you spent on a night out, but you could map the location of those transactions on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. Not available for every transaction. T's and C's apply.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
In the stock market and in life, everything can change from 1 minute to the next. Be the first to hear the latest money news and market trends with CNBC on TuneIn. Wherever your day takes you, listen to CNBC's full slate of programming, including shows like Fast Money, Squawk Box, and Mad Money with Jim Cramer. And when the next big business story breaks, CNBC lets you know with live updates and commentary. At the office, at home, or on the go. Search CNBC on TuneIn to listen. In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn. Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
For some, Halloween is a little more serious than candy and costumes. To give your Hallows Eve a truly frightening feeling, turn on Soma FM's special Doom Station to hear a haunting seance of soundscapes made for tortured souls, the living dead, and cursed spirits of the night. Search Doom Special on TuneIn to run a chill down your spine this Halloween.
Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with his Bloomberg Business Flash. This on a day when most stocks are falling. And some of the reasons behind it, we had weak manufacturing data, mixed batch of earnings, and also renewed concern that the trade deal with China is still pretty much elusive at this point. S&P 500 slipping. Regional manufacturing gave missed estimates. The jobless claims rose more than forecast. Now, the S&P 500 has been under pressure this morning. Follows our report that Chinese officials have warned they won't budge on the thorniest trade issues. Apple and Facebook, they're rising after their earnings. They're keeping things from getting any worse. Right now, the S&P 500, 13 points lower. That's down 0.4%. We're at 3,033. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, 148 points lower. That's down 0.6%. We're at 27,036. And the Nasdaq Composite Index is down 31 points, a decline of about 0.4%. We're at 82.73. 10-year yield in the U.S. at 170. There is a bid to Treasuries. They're up 17.30 seconds in price. We'll check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
When we talk about economics, we talk about certainly the consumer. Bloomberg Markets brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the sixth straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit commonwealth.com to learn more. We are so lucky to have Danielle DiMartino Booth in the studio with us here. Chief Executive Officer, Chief Strategist of Quill Intelligence, also a Bloomberg opinion columnist, a former Fed employee in Dallas. And, I really want to focus on the consumer. We got a number of data today, data points. Consumer spending came in lower than expected, and the Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index plunged the most on a weekly basis in 8 years.
In 8 years, and yet Jay Powell has put all of his eggs in the one basket of saying we're not going to cut rates as long as the consumer hangs in there. It's a big bet on his part. I mean, he really, really is not diversifying Fed policy. Let's put it that way.
All right, so I take it just from that comment alone that you think that the Fed should be cutting more.
It's not so much that look, the economy is slowing, and it gets tiresome to listen to these press conferences when Jay Powell's clearly in denial. Yes, interest rate sensitive sectors, actually, let's just say sector, because autos really haven't budged. In fact, auto buying intentions in the latest consumer confidence data are crashing. So the only needle that's been moved by these rate cuts has been housing. That's it. And we're seeing, as I was just saying to Lisa, we saw in the bank earnings reports that the credit card spending rates have been coming down. Revolving credit has been a tremendous support for consumer spending. We're seeing the saving rate tick up. We saw that this morning. It ticked up to 8.3%. Consumers are clearly battening down the hatches. We're seeing deposits, cash savings increase as well. So I think the consumer senses that there's something amiss. But again, that's where Jay Powell's got all of his bets.
All right. There are two questions implicit here. First question, will cutting rates actually encourage consumers to spend more?
No, I don't think it will. Right? And that, Mike McKee's been very good at press conferences about drilling him on this. What are these rate cuts going to do? I think the rate cuts have more to do with the plumbing in the financial system because the Fed is buying treasury bills like there's no tomorrow, and money market funds are arbitraging this by parking their money at the Fed where they get an additional 10 basis points. It's boxing the Fed into where they have to continue to lower rates.
Okay. The second question that I have is regarding that credit card spending that you're seeing at the biggest banks. I read the Heard on the Street column in the Wall Street Journal about this, and it's not that it is declining. It's just that the growth in the credit card revolving credit has been lower, has been coming down. And I guess there are two ways to read this. You could read this as a tempering of the economy, which everyone knows that it's slowing, and you could look at it as waning consumer confidence and a sign that things are going to turn south. Which is the correct read?
I think that consumers know that there is slowing. Look, jobless claims have barely moved, but the breadth of states that have increasing jobless claims has increased from about a third. It hit 75% in September. We're running about 51% now of states in the country with rising jobless claims. And to your point about growth in credit card spending slowing, the average weekly earnings, we'll get new data out tomorrow morning, but in June it was running at a 4% rate. In September it had ticked down to 2.6%. That's the paycheck growth. It's not so much that income is declining, it's that households know that their paycheck is no longer growing at the same pace.
So it appears that Chairman Powell and some members of the dovish Fed, if you will, are thinking about it's all about the jobs, and everybody's got a job, and unemployment's at its all-time low.
We're bringing people off the sidelines and blah, blah, blah. Yes.
So blah, blah, blah. So tomorrow, what are you going to look at that cut through the blah, blah, blah tomorrow on the jobs number?
So I'll be focused tomorrow on the sectors where we're seeing job growth. If you looked inside the internals of the ADP report yesterday, one sector, financials, that was the only one where you saw any growth of any kind in super large companies, over 1,000 employees. Otherwise, you name the sector, contracting. And you name the size of the business, seriously slowing growth. So I'm going to be looking at where jobs are being created. We've seen in the survey, we've seen in the soft data that service and employment indices have come down. In the case of market, it's at a 10-year low. So I'll be looking to see what types of jobs are being created. Dig into this consumer comfort data, and you will see that the highest income earners, that their confidence has been coming down at a much faster pace than the people who they employ, who still have high confidence.
Is the consumer a leading or lagging indicator?
Absolutely lagging. Every recession 63% of post-war recessions, we have been in recession with expanding consumption. It is not something that you look to see where the economy is headed. It is something you look into the rearview mirror to see post facto.
Real quickly, what did you want to hear from Chairman Powell yesterday that you didn't hear?
I wanted to hear a lot more about the repo facility. I wanted to hear a lot more about why he contends that it's not quantitative easing just because it's at the short end of the maturity curve. I don't think there were enough questions that were asked, and I think that his intent and his Cinderella wish is to have a 1995-1998 redux and be Alan Greenspan, to where the economy just continues to expand after 3 rate cuts. But in 95, we were at the beginning of an economic expansion. In 98, we had a massive hedge fund blowing up. These were idiosyncratic events. We're not there. We're deep into this economic expansion, and I would have preferred to have seen a little bit more about him saying no more rate cuts, but by the way, QE's blasting.
Right. Danielle DiMartino Booth, thank you so much for joining us. Really helpful. Danielle's the CEO and Chief Strategist of Quill Intelligence, also a Bloomberg opinion columnist, giving us her smart thoughts on what we heard yesterday from Chairman Powell and the Fed, and what we might be looking forward to, what we need to focus on tomorrow with the jobs number. Of course, Bloomberg Radio will cover the jobs report in full, as we do always. S&P right now down 17, Dow down 194. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are falling as Chinese officials are casting doubts about reaching a comprehensive long-term trade deal with the U.S., even as the two sides get close to signing a Phase 1 agreement. Bloomberg has learned that Beijing has warned it won't budge on the thorniest issues between the two nations. A couple of notes of caution on the U.S. economy. Consumer spending trailed forecasts last month. It rose 0.2%. Meanwhile, weekly applications for unemployment benefits rose more than expected. Jobless claims were up 5,000 to 218,000. Ford reached a tentative agreement with the United Auto Workers on a new labor contract, likely avoiding a strike that cost rival General Motors billions of dollars. And it's Halloween, and the National Retail Federation projects when all of the spending on candy, costumes, decorations, and activities is added up, it will total $8.8 billion. Shoppers say they'll spend an average of $86 this holiday. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick, and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
What can you get from Tesco for £1 each this Halloween?
A pumpkin.
More.
A spooky pumpkin cup.
More.
Ghostly balloons. Spine-tingling spider webs. Ghoulish plates and napkins.
More. Yes, it is scary what you can get for just £1 each this Halloween.
Tesco. Every little helps. Available in selected larger stores.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
He does to the right, throws to the end zone, caught by Fells!
15, 10, 5, touchdown Green Bay!
Today, for your Halloween, hear the home and away call as the San Francisco 49ers visit the Arizona Cardinals at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Back. What a block! Touchdown for Tevin Coleman going the other way! Touchdown!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane of the rim, throwing down.
Right corner three, another one. TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the Bloomberg exclusive showing that China does not necessarily believe that they can get a long-term deal with President Trump to resolve the trade tensions. They're a little concerned. We did see a market move off that. We'll be looking into that. Plus, we'll be taking a look ahead to what the rates picture is through the end of the year. Right now, though, let's head over to our own John Tucker for a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Yeah, at least the major averages, they are all lower. Definite risk off today. S&P 500 slipping after the regional manufacturing gauge missed estimates. Jobless claims, they also rose more than we forecast. And China also, as you just mentioned, says it won't budge on the thorniest trade issues. The bond market isn't convinced that the Federal Reserve is done lowering rates, even after policymakers yesterday signaled a pause unless the outlook changes materially. And like a lot of investors, Francis Donald at Manulife has a few questions for Fed officials.
I'd want to know, when would you hike rates again, and exactly how much inflation will it take? That's the most important question for all of markets, and it has to do with this 3 to 5 year outlook that will entirely define what asset allocation decisions look like for the next year.
For stocks, the earnings continue to rumble on. Kraft Heinz surging after it beat expectations. Wayfair, that's taking a plunge after its forecast missed. And, of course, Apple and Facebook, they are both higher after posting their earnings results. S&P 500, 21 points lower right now. 3,024. The Dow, 231 points lower. We're at 26,955. The Nasdaq Composite Index, 52 points lower. We're at 8,251. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the traded day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash. hash.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
It is 10:33, time for Bloomberg Opinion. Joining us is John Authors from Bloomberg Opinion. We want to start, John, with the China news. Bloomberg has this exclusive story out today saying that maybe this China deal isn't going to happen maybe the way we think it's going to happen, and maybe not as soon as we think it's going to happen. So it's this on again, off again. What is your take?
My take is that I believe our story, and not just because I obviously have great trust in our reporters. It has the ring of truth about it. This is a very difficult deal to bring in, and there's an awful lot of balls in the air. Now, and also, I suppose the other thing is coming up with something that is ultimately satisfying, that is an ultimate resolution, is almost impossible. It's going to take years to thrash out what's a very, very deep, complicated relationship.
So we've seen this movie a million times before, yes, where we've gotten a lot of conflicting headlines, and I'm trying to figure out whether markets are getting inured to it at this point, or whether they just continue to, do doggy dance when they get a headline.
I would say both of those things are true, that this is not as dramatic.
Yes, the answer is yes.
The comparison I would make is that in many ways August the 1st was a perfect dry run for Halloween. If you remember, that was when we had the first of the Fed rate cuts, and Jay Powell made a big attempt to say, that's it, we're done, just the one. And then we had bad news on China. In that case, it was a Trump tweet saying there were going to be more tariffs, so more drastic news than we've had this time. And immediately everybody bet that within 24 hours, Powell's attempts to draw the line under rate cuts were over. This isn't as dramatic as that, and I think you're right. People are getting a little calmer about it, but it's the same dynamic at work.
So I love your most recent column here. Nothing to FOMC here.
Yes.
What are you referring to?
This was, again, on the subject of markets getting used to things and becoming calmer about it. We had two FOMC meetings in a row where we had a really robust attempt at a hawkish cut, contradiction in terms, but both times Powell really tried to say, yes, I am cutting rates, but I'm hawkish, honest I am. And both times you saw quite a spectacular fall for the stock market and concomitant moves in other markets once he started speaking in the press conference. Everybody knew that was going to happen again. We basically had exactly the same scripts, but as we were ready for it this time, we didn't have the same market reaction. People knew what was coming, more or less.
This will be the Alice in Wonderland period of markets because we have a hawkish cut.
Goldilocks, anyway.
Right? I would like to coin a new phrase. We are in the Alice in Wonderland market because you have a hawkish cut.
Yes.
You have negative rates. That's not a rate. That's a loss, right? Yes. You're getting a mid-cycle adjustment. We've been mid-cycle for about 10 years. I guess I'm trying to sort of square the rhetoric with a sense of what markets are. I mean, I'm sorry to get all existential, but it is Existential Thursday, and I'm going there.
Good for you. Good for you. I majored in philosophy too. Don't know whether you did, but it's
your parents like, what are you doing?
George Soros is very proud that he majored in philosophy, and that did him no harm at all. Yes, you're right. This is one of the problems, given that I make my living by allegedly having a better idea than other people what the market is going to do next. That's something that makes things very, very, very uncomfortable at the moment. The framework and the true precedents to rely on just aren't there. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen in 2008, but I and many people could see that the strong likelihood was something very bad was going to happen. This is different. This is much harder to work out. Like, what is the resolution to a period of sustained low interest rates? I don't know. Negative interest rates.
Sure. Are you in the camp that says, trade issues aside, we're in a period for just lower growth for longer?
That has been a good bet for a very long time. Yeah. Yes, and ultimately there are ways out of it. But we've relied on China at the margin to do the world's growing for at least, I was going to say 10, but it's more like 20 years. It's at least since WTO accession, if not a bit before. And plainly they have to slow down significantly.
There's a shift, though. I will say that there has been a material sea change, and that has come from central banks conceding that they are out of ammunition, or almost out of ammunition. The Fed, perhaps not as much out of ammunition as other banks, but nonetheless, this putting a very real cap on how far the growth can do, at least fueled by central banks.
And to some extent, what we have seen in the last few years, the last bubble upwards was, it's not a zero lower bound. The lower bound is a bit below zero. But now there is the realization, actually, there is a lower bound. Even if it's below zero, it's probably not much below -1, and at which point banks fail because nobody leaves their money in a bank.
Yeah.
So we are still, that is the logic, the painful, I was going to say dilemma, the contradiction that we're now up against.
You can't take negative rates to infinity and beyond.
No.
Thank you so much. We always love having you here, John Authers, a senior markets contributor and a Bloomberg Opinion author. Thank you for being here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios. You can read all of his and other columns, OPIN Go, on the Bloomberg or Bloomberg.com/opinion. Let's head over to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager.
Lisa, thank you. House Democrats hold a historic vote today to kick off the public phase of an inquiry that moves significantly closer to a vote to impeach President Trump. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Capitol Hill.
Republican Devin Nunes said the procedures will disadvantage Republican members.
These rules simply give the House approval for Democrats to continue pursuing their bizarre obsession with overturning the results of the last presidential election.
Rules Chairman Jim McGovern said Republicans will have ample opportunity to question witnesses and obtain documents.
I don't think there is any process that we can propose that Republicans who prefer to circle the wagons around this president and prevent us from getting to the truth would accept.
The Intelligence Committee will conduct the open hearings, then turn the potential drafting of impeachment articles to the Judiciary Committee. On Capitol Hill, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she has the votes needed to pass the resolution. In her weekly news conference ahead of this vote, Pelosi also says the House is making progress every day on the USMCA North American trade deal. She hopes for a resolution on that soon. China may be casting doubt on a long-term trade deal with the U.S., but President Trump is keeping hope alive for the Phase 1 agreement. The president tweeted this morning that he is working with Beijing to find an alternative venue to sign the accord with China's Xi Jinping. That's after Chile canceled next month's APEC summit. The president calls the first phase deal about 60% of the overall deal. And an associate of Rudy Giuliani, who's charged with using foreign money to make illegal campaign contributions, is seeking relaxed bail conditions. A federal judge in Manhattan has set a hearing tomorrow for Igor Fruman. Global news, 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
It's another Thursday afternoon. Yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Reach the top of Mount Teede or relax on a sandy beach. Fly from London Gatwick to Tenerife with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £349 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
The B&Q 3-for-2 offer is now on, including an unmissable 3-for-2 on tiles and flooring, like real wood and laminate. So hurry to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3-for-2 it. Excludes cut-to-measure flooring, flooring accessories and underlay. Every third item per single transaction in descending price order free. Offer ends November 3rd. See DIY.com.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Toss to the right, throws to the end zone, caught by Fells!
15, 10, 5, touchdown, Green Bay!
Today, for your Halloween, hear the home and away call as the San Francisco 49ers visit the Arizona Cardinals at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
What a block! Touchdown for Tevin Coleman going the other way! Touchdown!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
It is the annual Florida-Georgia College Football Showdown. This year, there are more than just bragging rights on the line, with both teams ranked in the top 10. Will it be the Gators or Bulldogs leaving Jacksonville on top of the SEC East and in the driver's seat for the conference championship? Find out this Saturday, with kickoff starting at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Search college football to listen.
For some, Halloween is a little more serious than candy and costumes. To give your Hallows Eve a truly frightening feeling, turn on Soma FM's special Doom Station to hear a haunting seance of soundscapes made for tortured souls, the living dead, and cursed spirits of the night. Search Doom Special on TuneIn to run a chill down your spine this Halloween.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing down. Right corner three, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA Today to start listening.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker, the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Definite risk-off day today, as the major averages are all lower by at least 0.5%. S&P 500 down 18 points right now. That's down 0.6 at 3,028. The Dow Jones Industrial average 207 points lower at 26,980. Nasdaq Composite Index 37 points lower at 8,266. Most of those stocks are falling after weak manufacturing data, also mixed batch of earnings, and renewed concern about the trade deal with China, which still remains elusive. Treasuries in gold and the yen, they're all rising. And a day after delivering the third rate cut in a row, the Federal Reserve and Chairman Jerome Powell still have a big target on their back. President Trump just tweeting out, people are very disappointed in Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve. The Fed, he says, has called it wrong from the beginning, too fast and too slow. And it goes on. Once again, stocks are lower as we see the 10-year yield right now, 169. There's a bid to the Treasuries up 21.30 seconds in price. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
So Jim Simons created what arguably is the best hedge fund ever, at least if you look at profitability, and he also created the biggest one ever. We have with us, we're so lucky to have Barry Ritholtz of Bloomberg Opinion, also, of course, of Ritholtz Wealth Management here in our Interactive Brokers studios. You wrote this column, How Jim Simons Built the Best Hedge Fund Ever, based on reviewing the book by Greg Zuckerman of the Wall Street Journal, The Man Who Solved the Market. Why do you say it's the best hedge fund ever?
Well, so first, thanks for having me. And a little background, I get a ton of books from different publishers. Most of them go right into the recycle bin. But I've been tracking Simons. He was the outgoing math department chairman when I was an undergraduate at SUNY Stony Brook. And I've tracked his career. He's a fascinating guy. They put together a track record that, as Zuckerman details, is just incomprehensible. Nobody else comes. There is no second place. It's Renaissance Technologies, and then everybody else is third or worst. 66% a year for 30 years. Those numbers are just insane. Now, to be fair, they did charge a lot. It was 5% plus 44% of the profits, because one of the ways they managed to do this was long before there were Bloomberg terminals on everybody's desk, and long before we had CRISPR and databases, they effectively created their own technology, their own server, their own database, and used it as a basis of analyzing mathematical relationships between markets. You know, I really enjoyed the book. It comes out November 5th. I read it over the Labor Day weekend, and I have been champing at the bit to discuss it. The book kind of reveals that Simons didn't solve the markets. He didn't hire anybody from Wall Street, no economists, no traders, no strategists. It's all computer scientists and mathematicians and computer linguist specialists from the IBM group and all sorts of really interesting people. And they just approached trading like a math problem. And so they find all of these interesting anomalies, which they can then take advantage of. But it's not investing traditionally, so they don't buy something and put it away for 10 years. And it's not high-frequency trading. It's not that like they're buying and selling every millisecond. They hold stuff for hours, days, weeks, until the expected relationship reverts. And that's how you can put together eye-popping returns with a little bit of leverage. They're not just trading straight up.
No, I will just say this. I'm grateful to Jim Simons for his investment in the Math Museum on about 23rd Street as a family of math folk.
25th Street.
25th Street, thank you. I deeply enjoy that museum.
Really? There's a math museum?
It's really
cool. How did I miss
that?
Boy.
Are you, really? Yeah. Is that sarcasm?
No, but now I know what I'm doing on the lunch hour. Going down 25th Street.
It's between Madison and 5th, and they have a wonderful, I'm embarrassed to say that I know this, but they have this wonderful gift department. If you want to get a toy or a gift for a child who's a little mathy, this is the perfect place to go.
And they have really cool series of lectures. I'm not going to say anymore.
Okay, carry on. So Barry, you knew this firm was different just by the name. It's not Renaissance Capital Management. It's Renaissance Technologies. What technology did they bring? It sounds like to me
the catapult. When you think of Renaissance, it's not the windmill. So effectively, it's computers and math.
Right.
This is, on the one hand, D.E. Shaw and other quant firms like that were around before Simons. And in the book, I was shocked to learn he began his career as a dabbler in trading, like every other mom and pop day trader. He was a macro tourist. He was doing all the behavioral things wrong that everybody does wrong. But understand, here's a guy who was a code breaker for the NSA, and then he built Stony Brook was a minor state university. His work in the math department turned them into a nationally ranked powerhouse. So one of the surprising things you learn in the book, he is fantastic at building teams. He did it for the code breakers at NSA. He did it at Stony Brook, and then he did it at Renaissance Technologies. The technologies being simply applying the maths via computer technology to the idea that there are mathematical relationships between different stocks, different asset classes, different time horizons, that if you have the computing horsepower and the programming skills, you can identify. And it's not one simple algorithm. It's hundreds of different little strategies that each add a couple of percent and collectively add up to 6% a year.
So I guess the other takeaway from Renaissance Technologies is its secrecy. And we don't know very much about it, and you really highlighted this in your column. What did we learn new from this book?
There's a surprise. So again, as someone who's tracked Simons for decades, and there's only so much information about this, I got to give Greg Zuckerman tremendous credit. He went out and really spent 2.5 years speaking to the people who were Simon's colleagues at the NSA, when he was a professor at MIT and at Harvard before he went to Stony Brook, the people pre-non-disclosure agreements. Zuckerman also says he spoke to a number of different people he was scheduled to speak to who never worked at Renaissance Technologies but were at big competitors, and Simons would make a phone call saying, "Don't talk to this reporter," and they would cancel. They are that respectful, I don't even want to say fearful, just respectful of Jim Simons, that when he said, "Do me a favor, don't talk to this reporter, I don't need a book coming out about me," they canceled. And eventually Zuckerman circles back to Simons and says, "Look, I've spoken to your colleagues from 40 years ago, 30 years ago. You could keep canceling this, but the book is coming out. If I were you, you should have a hand in shaping it." And Simons eventually relents, sits with him for over 10 hours of interviews, which is amazing. And the book is just a fascinating portrait. It's not just about Jim Simons. It's Bob Mercer, his CEO, who was a big backer of President Trump. It's all the other math wizards and geeks and programmers who each made major contributions to that incredible track record. P.S. Simons is now worth $23 billion, not because of those fat fees, but because he kicked out all of his outside investors, and it's only the Medallion Fund just for Renaissance Technology employees.
I was going to say, I'm ready to put my $1,000 in, but maybe not.
Incredible recruitment tool to offer that to your employees.
Exactly. Barry Ritholtz, thank you so much. Barry Ritholtz, founder of Ritholtz Capital Wealth Management, and also a Bloomberg opinion columnist with a very cool column out looking at Jim Simons and the book by the person from the Wall Street Journal. Yeah, there you go. This is Bloomberg.
It's another Thursday afternoon. Yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Hi, I'm back. I just set a personal best on my park run. Feels great.
That's lovely, Mike. I think you've earned the right to put all the bins out.
Hey?
With Vitality Life Insurance, you get properly rewarded when you're active. In fact, you could save over £730 every year in discounts and rewards from our partners. Join over 1 million customers. Just search Vitality Life. Vitality. Positively different. Annual savings available with certain plans and are dependent on members' usage of rewards available. Terms and conditions apply.
Watford, it's chilly outside, and you're staying in with your feet up, and they can stay up. Because with Hive Active Heating, you can set the perfect temperature without even lifting a finger.
Alexa, ask Hive to boost my heating.
And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill.
Alexa, play my Nice and Toasty playlist.
Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Mate, this fan's suspension is rubbish.
Tell me about it.
Even the radio's had it.
I know, but I'd get nothing if I scrapped it.
Actually, you can get at least £2,000 off a new Ford for it.
You're kidding.
With Ford's new for old scrappage scheme, you can get between £2,000 and £6,250 off a new Ford van if you scrap an eligible vehicle with us responsibly. Also, there's 0% APR representative on Ford Acquire. Ford Commercial Vehicles, backbone of Britain. Search Ford Scrappage. Exclusions apply. Contract and registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating dealers. Agent ownership criteria apply to scrappage vehicle. Subject to status. Free post full credit. Deposit restrictions apply.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
So what we see more bonds, more yield. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, we've got a host of great guests. Tony Rodriguez of Nuveen, Christina Hooper, Invesco Chief Global Market Strategist. How do you strategize around conflicting trade headlines, around a Fed that is doing things like hawkish cuts? Right now, let's head over to our own John Tucker for a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And Lisa, it's risk off in the markets. Jitters abound. Consumer spending trailed forecast in September. Weekly applications of unemployment benefits rose more than projected. More gloom? Well, Chinese officials are casting doubts about reaching a comprehensive long-term trade deal with the United States. As Steve Rasciuto over at Mizuho Securities says he isn't surprised about this latest turn in the trade relations.
The longer-term part of the deal with regard to intellectual property and the security-related issues, those are part of a much more bigger picture going on, which is basically a new Cold War designed to box out China.
And the parade of earnings continue. Time for a report card on the earnings as you look at 342 companies in the S&P 500 reporting so far. 79% have had positive earnings results. S&P 500 right now, 13 points lower. That's down 0.4% at 3,033. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, 172 points lower at 27,015. The Nasdaq Composite Index is 23 points lower at 8,280. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
John Tucker, thank you so much. We do have a risk-off day today, a little bit of a pause in the momentum that had been building in trade talks. Let's get a sense of what's going on in the small-cap world. And to that, we welcome Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor. Dave, what are you looking at?
Bigger declines for smaller companies. We'll start there. The Russell 2000 index down 0.9%, while the S&P 500 is only lower by 0.4%. The Russell's steepest drop belongs to Merit Medical Systems, whose ticker is MMSI. The medical supplier has fallen almost 32%. Third quarter earnings were well below analyst average estimate in a Bloomberg survey, and sales also came up short. Willdan Group, ticker WLDN, has declined 23.5%. The government contractor's earnings trailed estimates for the fourth straight quarter. And World Acceptance, ticker WRLD, has lost more than 20%. The consumer finance company's profit for the fiscal second quarter came up short of projections. Revenue missed estimates as well. Now, the Russell's biggest gain belongs to Murphy USA, ticker MUSA. The gas station owner has advanced 21%. Earnings beat estimates for the third quarter after coming up short for 4 quarters in a row. And Ducommun, ticker DCO, has also climbed 20%. The aircraft parts maker's third quarter profit and revenue topped analysts' highest projections.
Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor. Thank you. What are you dressing up for Halloween as?
I'm just going to be me.
All right.
That's
Sounds
good enough.
exciting.
That's
That is
plenty.
good enough. That's plenty good. Please get some exciting ties. Let's switch gears now to the municipal bond market. An interesting story, especially in light of what happened after the 2016 election. We saw a lot of volatility in the muni debt market. So now, what is Wall Street preparing for if President Trump wins or loses the election? Joining us, Amanda Albright, Bloomberg News municipal bond reporter. So how are people positioning ahead of the 2020 election?
Yeah, so it seems like muni market investors are actually looking forward to 2020. They're kind of starting to factor in higher taxes under the Democratic candidates. And they're also kind of saying that they don't see taxes going any lower. So the reason why this is important is because obviously munis are tax-free. So people tend to seek them out when they're worried about their taxes going higher, which is something that we've seen play out, all of 2019, thanks to the new limit on state and local tax deductions.
How has the muni bond market performed in 2019 so far?
So the muni market is it started off pretty strong, but now we're underperforming treasuries, even though we do have all this cash coming in. The story points out that this has been kind of a record year so far for muni bond flows. But basically the past few weeks we've been kind of weighed down by an uptick in supply.
How often do people get these election calls right? I mean, there was a story on the Bloomberg terminal this week about how everybody says the sky is going to fall no matter who wins, and they're always wrong. And it's a great contrarian indicator. Is the same true in the muni market?
It's funny because the story mentions this report in 2016 from Barclays. The report, mentions that maybe a Trump win wasn't priced in 2016, and it said that it expected a violent flight to quality if Trump was elected. That's exactly what happened in the muni market in November 2016. It was the worst month since 2008. And, the way that investors talk about that month, they're still pretty traumatized by it. But people seem a little bit more optimistic about 2020 because, basically they don't think that taxes can come down anymore, just given where, the federal deficit is.
So what kind of individual investors buy muni bonds? Is it just the wealthy looking to cut their tax exposure, or is it pretty much across the board?
Yeah, so it's more of an asset class favored by the wealthy, and that's kind of why we've seen so many inflows this year. A lot of people in New York, New Jersey, California, those are kind of the notorious muni bond lovers.
Oh, yeah.
And so they've been kind of the ones that have been flocking to the muni market.
You have one right here.
Yes, the salt taxes. Not a big fan.
So I have a question.
Yes.
We have here a test case.
Right.
Mr. Sweeney from New Jersey. And are you planning to buy or sell depending on the outcome of an election?
I'm just a big fan of the municipal bond market for myself. Always has been. So it's a big part of the portfolio. But I can tell. I've just known in the tri-state area, a lot of people are talking a lot more about, since President Trump and the tax bill about municipal bonds as a way to try to offset a little bit of the change in the SALT taxes, the state and local tax deduction. But Amanda, one of the things in the municipal bond market I don't really have a good handle on is a taxable municipal bond market. It's almost like an oxymoron. What's going on there?
Yeah, so that's more of something that institutional buyers tend to favor. Retail doesn't really seem to care about taxable munis. They really want that tax exemption. And so, there has been this huge surge in taxable issuance this year, but maybe not so much on the tax exempt side, which people like Matt Dalton, who I quoted in the story, they're saying that they see the tax exempt muni as becoming really scarce because of this phenomenon where people really want to protect their money from taxes.
How is the prudence on the part of municipalities that are selling debt right now? In other words, how good is the underwriting right now?
So it's an interesting question. We've written a lot about high yield deals this year, and just kind of concerns that investors have raised with covenants. You're seeing a lot of big investors say that they're sitting on the sidelines. They don't want anything to do with the high yield deals that have come to market. I think, in the investment grade space, it does seem prudent to sell munis because interest rates are so low and it's a really good time to borrow. But I think on, the below investment grade side or unrated side, we've seen basically all year and, last year too, just people raising concerns again and again with the protections on these deals.
Are municipalities rushing out to issue debt at these low levels?
We've seen states and hospitals and bigger size issuers. They're the ones that have been floating the big taxable deals in the muni market, and they're doing that to refinance debt issued about a decade ago. So that's kind of accounting for a lot of the surge in bond sales this year.
Amanda Albright, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed on the municipal bond market. Amanda Albright covers all things municipals for Bloomberg News. So just getting a sense there what's going on. It's, a lot of people were, crowding into municipal bonds, and we've seen a lot of fund flows into municipal bonds when, as Amanda said, they performed generally pretty well. So an interesting part of the fixed income market that maybe not a lot of investors are as comfortable with.
Oh, they're getting a lot more comfortable with them. I mean, honestly, definitely, I don't really understand why an individual would buy a taxable municipal bond, to Amanda's point, but interesting to see how they're becoming a comparable fixed income instrument for institutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Just real quick check on the market. We have the S&P down 11, Dow down 150. Right now, let's head to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for World and National Headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Watching the votes roll in, Paul, on that U.S. House floor resolution that would lay out the ground rules for public impeachment proceedings against President Trump. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is calling this a sad day.
I doubt anybody in this place or anybody that comes to Congress to take the oath of office, comes to Congress to impeach the President of the United States.
White House Counselor Kellyanne Conway says there is nothing Congress can do to make the inquiry legitimate.
It was October 8th. It's over 3 months ago. That White House counsel sent a letter and said this is an unconstitutional, illegitimate process.
President Trump has resisted setting up a White House war room to respond to the inquiry. Now Conway says he may add lawyers and communications staff. As the vote continues, it is breaking down mostly along party lines. Only one Democrat voting against the resolution to begin the public impeachment proceeding. The Trump re-election campaign has more than $150 million on hand as of the end of the third quarter. It's more than twice as much as Barack Obama had at a similar time. And the president will be targeting a lot of that money at states he narrowly lost in 2016, including Minnesota and Colorado. Trump campaign officials say they want to expand the president's political map. 2 more wildfires have broken out in Southern California's Inland Empire, destroying homes and forcing evacuations in San Bernardino and Riverside counties east of Los Angeles. Meantime, evacuation orders have been lifted for the Hill Fire in Riverside County and for most of the Getty Fire in Los Angeles. Global news, 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Full breakfast, cup of coffee, whatever you have in the morning, have it at daybreak.
What's the outlook for the pound if there is another election?
Nathan Hager.
The U.S. could still delay those tariffs?
And Karen Moscow.
It is the 5th major industry player to make some sort of zero commission offer.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Bloomberg has more from Hong Kong.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Fall in love with the brand new iPhone 11 at Tesco Mobile. Take amazing photos with Apple's best ever ultra-wide lens camera. You can get the iPhone 11 for just $37.75 a month with no additional upfront costs. What's not to love? Search Tesco Mobile or visit us in store. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage contract. Subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Mate, this fan's suspension is rubbish.
Tell me about it.
Even the radio's had it.
I know, but I'd get nothing if I scrapped it.
Actually, you can get at least £2,000 off a new Ford for it.
You're kidding?
With Ford's new for old scrappage scheme, you can get between £2,000 and £6,250 off a new Ford van if you scrap an eligible vehicle with us responsibly. Also, there's 0% APR representative on Ford Acquire. Ford Commercial Vehicles. Backbone of Britain. Search Ford Scrappage. Exclusions apply. Contract and registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating dealers. Agent ownership criteria apply to scrappage vehicle. Subject to status. Free post full credit. Deposit restrictions apply.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
He does to the right. Throws to the end zone. Caught by Fells.
15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Green Bay.
Today, for your Halloween. Hear the home and away call as the San Francisco 49ers visit the Arizona Cardinals at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Back. What a block! Touchdown for Tevin Coleman going the other way. Touchdown!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Looking for a new podcast to inspire your work life? On the latest edition of Pod Club, Adam Grant, host of TED Podcast Work Life, shares the pods that have blown his mind.
My all-time favorite episode of the podcast is How to Love Criticism. I went to Bridgewater, where a manager was told in front of 200 colleagues that he was the single worst manager at the company. And I came away convinced that we all have a support network, but we also need a challenge network.
Go to podcast on TuneIn to see Adam's Pod Club picks.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations,
Live commercial-free news,
and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game.
Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Far wing elevates. Triple bucket.
The War of the Crown.
The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
The sideline, the man Fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the right.
Search NBA today to start listening.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. This on a day when the major averages are all lower. Most stocks are declining today. The S&P 500 slipping. You had a regional manufacturing gauge that missed estimates. Also on the jobs front, jobless claims rising more than forecast. And Chinese officials warning they won't budge on the thorniest of the trade issues. Among the movers today, Apple and Facebook, some of the exceptions to the four biggest U.S. companies rising after earnings. That's preventing a steeper loss in the major averages. S&P 500, 13 points lower right now, 3,033. The NASDAQ Composite Index down 14 points at 82.88. And the Dow down 183 points right now at 27,003. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, yesterday we had what is now being coined a hawkish interest rate cut by the Fed. Today we got some mixed economic news. Consumer perhaps a little bit weaker than expected. The question is, what does this mean for fixed income markets going forward? To address that, we welcome Tony Rodriguez, head of fixed income strategy at Nuveen. He joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So, Tony, thanks so much for joining us. Let's just start with what we got yesterday from the Fed and from Chairman Powell. What was your key takeaway?
I think my key takeaway was that I thought that the key was that they did not communicate a very hawkish ease. And I think they kind of were able to thread that needle a little bit. I know it's being referred to as a hawkish ease, but they did talk in the press conference very much about how the three things that they consider to be the rationale for lowering rates were, global growth, trade uncertainty, and then inflation is not at their target. And they re-emphasize that they are not going to raise rates until inflation really exceeds their target, because they talk about a symmetric target. So I think that kind of gave the market the idea that, look, they are not going to raise rates. The bar for that is enormously high, and the risks remain really unaddressed in terms of weaker global growth and in terms of trade uncertainty. So I think it's more than likely that we believe you'll see them actually come back to the market to cut rates again in the first half of next year because of those two concerns on trade and on global growth.
Everyone seems to agree that the risk to not cut enough is much bigger than cutting too quickly. That seems to be what everyone is saying, is that basically if you err on the side of easing, that's just fine. My concern is that no one's talking about moral hazard anymore in any way, shape, or form. Are we seeing anything in credit markets that indicates that perhaps companies are taking advantage of this easy money era that has gone on for a very long time and will continue for a very long time?
Yeah, so in the credit markets, I'd say what you're seeing is certainly elevated levels of debt to cash flow. Any kind of metric you look at has risen, but they are not at troubling levels. Okay, so companies have, I think, just fundamentally begun to target a different capital structure. Whereas years ago, people would have said AA or single A is where I want my balance sheet to be. And you, in fact, even had an occasional AAA corporate credit out there. I think pretty much financial kind of theory today is BBB is the optimal place for me to be. We don't care about being AA at all. Single A may, in fact, even be unnecessary because the cost of capital is so low on an absolute level. No company complains to us about capital being too expensive or unavailable.
Which this is the reason why you're seeing the BBB rated segment of the investment-grade bond market grow so much faster, with record pace of issuance so far this year and nearly $3 trillion of U.S. debt outstanding.
Right. And interestingly, what you are seeing is on some companies who have been kind of the poster children for being at risk of dropping into high yield, the fallen angel risk. So G would be the one that really pops up on people's screens. Those companies have shown a real commitment to at least try, and in many cases successfully, maintain that BBB rating. So whether it's through asset sales, cutting down their share buyback, reducing their dividend. So there is still a focus amongst CFOs and corporate boards to try to maintain an investment grade rating in the BBB space. So we think that, yes, it changes the character of the investment grade credit market quite a bit. Ultimately, when we get to a downturn, which, despite the longest growth period we've ever had here, we will get to one, then you may see a greater dislocation as a result of this, large amount of BBB, because we will have more fallen angels. There may not be the appetite then to absorb it. So the only shock absorber will be price. So you'll see spreads widen out more than maybe we've seen in other, previous recessionary periods.
So, Tony, given kind of what we know about the Fed, we got some more color yesterday. Given where we are in this economic cycle, as you mentioned, a very long economic growth cycle, what are you at Nuveen doing with your portfolios right now? What kind of adjustments are you making?
Sure. So the thing that we've been doing over the course of, I'd say, the last, call it even 6 to 9 months, has been positioning for the end of the cycle at some point. We don't think it's imminent. We're not calling for a recession in 2020, but we do think we're late cycle. And what that means in terms of defensive positioning is 3 things, really. Upgrading in quality within whatever segment of fixed income you're in, emerging markets, high yield, investment grade credit, upgrading in quality, upgrading in liquidity, so that you are able to maybe move your portfolio to an area where there is a dislocation when that happens, and increasing diversification. We don't think there is a single pound the table cheap asset out there in the fixed income space. But we also, since we're not seeing recession, you want to be exposed broadly to the greater income that's available versus sitting in a very defensive, in the bunker positioning of, cash and treasuries.
Well, it's quite a needle to thread, and I do wonder how concerned you are about the fact that your peers are doing something similar, and they're moving up in credit quality. We hear that a lot, and what you're seeing in the market is that the up in credit quality debt is actually giving you very little relative to history and relative to other aspects. So are you worried that it's sort of overpriced at this point, given that appetite?
Right, yeah. You always do worry about a consensus trade, right, that everybody's on the same side of the boat. The one thing I would say is that while we're upgrading quality, we have not abandoned completely, for example, the high-yield market, which would be in terms of the higher risk segments of the market, high yield, emerging markets, BBB debt. We're not abandoning those areas at all. We still think, in fact, there's value to be found. It's just that we're not digging into the CCC segment very much, although there's occasional opportunities there. I think the biggest thing that you need to make sure you have as an investor is an ability in this type of market to do the fundamental credit work to distinguish between the BBBs that are an opportunity and those that will be a very likely fallen angel, or the single Bs that could be declining. So the premium on strong credit research, I think, is higher now as you enter this late cycle with some of these imbalances along the credit quality scale than it would have been in previous cycles.
All right, let me ask just a weird question, just right off of what you just said. Credit analysis, credit research. The credit research departments don't exist on the sell side anymore. I mean, when I was there, we had 20, 30, 40, 50 people doing credit research. That doesn't exist anymore. What do you guys do about that?
Well, primarily you do have to rely on your own internal credit research. I would argue that, over time, really, the credit research from the sell side, while some was very high quality and truly just, effective at determining relative value, a lot of it was maybe just supporting, say, the syndicate desk in the new issue market and the trading positions. So I think that the credit departments internally at the asset management firms have grown over time. We have over 50. We're one of the largest in the business in that space, because the value you can get from identifying, real opportunities is enormous right now. When you think of how compressed yields are globally, compressed spreads, the opportunity really is in doing that bottom-up work, whether it's on a sovereign, an emerging space, or on a credit.
So we're speaking with Tony Rodriguez, head of fixed income strategy at Nuveen. We are awaiting a House vote on a Trump impeachment resolution, a key vote that will kick off, or potentially would kick off, a more public phase of the impeachment investigation. We are going to bring that to you live, but Tony, just get your thoughts. How much do political developments in the United States factor in, if at all, to your investing thesis?
They definitely do, because just broader uncertainty is certainly something that raises the level of volatility and the potential risk in a market. And the political uncertainty, not only in the U.S., but we think globally with what's been taking place, whether it's around Brexit or other world, the political uncertainty is high. So we are paying more attention to that than we'd probably like to, and therefore tapping into different sources for finding as much good political insight as you can, because it is dramatically impacting potential policy, whether it's on specific industries or broad issues like trade policy, tax policy, regulatory policy. It's pretty critical.
So what do you think would happen if President Trump gets impeached? What's the market response?
I think it's considered to be in terms of in the House, such an obvious that's going to happen, that right now the market's certainly convinced that nothing would happen in the Senate. So I think it really creates maybe just some short-term noise, but I don't think it'll change anything really fundamentally.
How do you guys factor in all the geopolitical issues that the market has to deal with every day, and Lisa and I have to report on every day, whether it's China trade.
That we love reporting on every day.
I love reporting on every day. Yeah, let me rephrase that. Brexit comes to mind, and so on and so forth.
Love it.
How does that factor into kind of what you guys do day to day?
Sure. Well, you have to factor in higher risk premiums for that, for example, because it's not only the political, call it noise or issues, they actually create fundamental issues. So Hong Kong, as you just saw, right, recession, negative 3+% growth quarter over quarter. So that political noise does in fact drive true fundamental economic and earnings, results.
Tony Rodriguez, thank you so much for being here with us all the way from Minneapolis. Head of fixed income strategy at Nuveen. Have a wonderful Halloween bundle up over there. Right now, let's get a check on the latest from Washington, D.C. We have our own Nathan Hager. Nathan.
We've been watching the votes roll in on the House floor on this resolution to take the next step in the impeachment inquiry into President Trump, and it has broken down just about exactly along party lines, 232 to 196 in favor of this resolution that doesn't actually begin formal impeachment proceedings, but does set up the mechanism by which articles of impeachment could be drafted by a House committee. The closed-door hearings will continue. At that point, the resolution could be brought forward to the House Judiciary Committee, which would then decide whether to bring formal articles of impeachment against the president. Only 2 Democrats voted against this resolution. As I said, it was pretty much a party line vote in favor of taking the next step to begin public impeachment proceedings against President Donald Trump. Lisa and Paul.
Nathan, give us a sense of what the timing might be for next steps here.
Well, the Democrats haven't laid out a formal timetable at this point. As I say, the committees, the 3 committees that have been conducting closed-door proceedings, taking depositions, gathering evidence in this impeachment inquiry, will continue their work. The Democrats have said they hope to bring some form of articles of impeachment, perhaps by the end of this year. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer had said just a couple of days ago that the House could extend its time past the time that that they were supposed to take a recess for the holiday season around December 12th. So if that were to happen, some of these proceedings could last pretty close to Christmas. And again, we just see this red headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal. It is official now, 232 to 196. The House has voted to begin the public phase of the impeachment proceedings.
Nathan Hager, thank you so much for giving us that context and bringing us that news. So we do have from the House a vote up really very directly along party lines for the public phase of the Trump impeachment probe. We're very pleased to say we have with us Christina Hooper, Invesco Chief Global Market Strategist. Christina, how often do you feel like Chief Political Strategist at this point? wishful thinking, and unfortunately, the market continues to get let down.
All right, let's focus a little bit more on fundamentals. Let's switch gears. What was your takeaway from the FOMC meeting yesterday and Chairman Powell's comments? Did it change your view of kind of how you guys want to be positioned?
It didn't, but it certainly gave a lot more clarity than we often get from Chair Powell. I think there was a little trepidation that they would remove the language that they did remove, but he was able to come back in that press conference and make investors feel more confident about the market, because it appears as though the Fed is going to be sitting on its hands for a while before it ever considers raising rates.
I coined a new phrase this morning, Alice in Wonderland market, hawkish cut, negative rates, these contradiction in terms. I'm wondering how you're sort of deciding how to position next in light of the earnings that we're getting, the things that are not, sort of wishy-washy, complicated, contradictory phrases. Are you seeing this latest 3Q earnings season as a positive sign for the U.S. economy?
Well, it is positive, but modestly positive. And I say that because companies have become very good at managing expectations and meeting or exceeding them. So this was certainly a positive earnings season, but we have to recognize that probably the more positive theme as we head into 2020 is that the Fed is relatively accommodative. We just don't have enough visibility on what earnings is going to be like for all of 2020. But we do have more visibility, I think, after yesterday's press conference in terms of what the Fed may do. So unless we see a significant spike in inflation, we're likely to see continued low rates.
So in this environment, again, continued low rates, late cycle, slowing growth, still growth in the U.S. economy, but slowing. Are there sectors that you feel more comfortable with right now versus some others?
Well, it's all a question of timing, because for the last few weeks and possibly a bit longer, value has looked attractive. The cyclical names have looked attractive because we saw a steepening of the yield curve. That seems to be changing today. I do think the longer term, if we look out for the next 6 to 12 months, is likely to be, again, growth outperforming value. And so that would drive me to tech, not the cyclical tech names, but the more secular growth names as an area that continue to perform well. So software, for example, cloud computing, those areas where we're seeing very nice levels of growth.
We had some good numbers out just on the tech front last night, Apple and Facebook. So does that give you, I'm not sure what your exposure is there, but at least it appears that the consumer-facing technology continues to be quite strong.
It does. Technology continues to be the go-to place for corporate spending as well. In an environment where you have a tight labor market, we're likely to see companies spend more on innovation, spend more on technology that enables productivity. So while we're seeing a decline in business investment overall, I think we'll see more dollars allocated to technology going forward.
And we are seeing today Apple shares as well as Facebook shares rising after beating expectations. Apple shares up 2%, Facebook up 3.25%. We're speaking with Christina Hooper, Invesco Chief Global Market Strategist. I don't know if you knew this, but it is Philosophical Thursday. And earlier today, on this program right here, you heard it first. We did get Twitter announcing that they were going to strip out political ads this morning. Shares fell, perhaps in response to that, perhaps in response to something else. Meanwhile, Facebook coming out, adding subscribers, not taking a similar measure, shares popping. What does that tell you about investors and how much they care about some of the sort of social implications that are talked a lot about in Washington, D.C., but aren't necessarily doing anything?
You hit the nail on the head. They've been talked about for a while. And so until we actually that overhang of greater regulation hanging over tech for a long time now.
Totally, but it makes me wonder, all these people saying that ESG filters are so important to them and they're looking at all of these at the social consequences, they're not making much traction here because it doesn't seem to matter. Am I wrong? You're right, but we're looking at a snapshot in time. And I think ESG will be one of those factors that over time rewards those companies that it believes are more in keeping with the values of ESG. But over the shorter term, I think what we're likely to see is reaction to the Democratic primaries. That this could be where you actually start to see some nervousness filter into tech prices for those companies that are perhaps on the front lines of potential regulation, depending upon which candidates do best in certain primaries.
Just real quickly, any sectors that or any asset classes you're just staying away from right here?
Well, I think we need to be very well diversified. So there's no asset class that I can say we should have no exposure to. But I would say that this is an important time to be emphasizing dividends. So
Christina Hooper, thank you. It's always wonderful having you. What are you going to dress up as for Halloween?
I'm going to dress up as a lazy mom who's sitting on the couch watching TV because I pawned my kids off on other people today.
Yeah. What are they dressing up as?
My oldest is a senior in high school, so it's just an afro and sunglasses and trying to look cool.
Yep, 100%. Go on.
My 13-year-old daughter is going as a frat boy, but she has no idea what a frat boy looks like, and it shows in her costume. And then finally, my 12-year-old, the most overplayed costume out there, Jason.
Oh, that's a classic.
But it's a rehash. I mean, my older son is going as Mike from Stranger Things, and that's the lamest costume ever.
Oh, I don't think so.
Well, because he gets to wear just a T-shirt and jeans and sneakers and sort of pretend he's cool. Thank you. Christina Hooper, Invesco Chief Global Market Strategist, joining us here in our Interactive Brokers studios. I didn't want to say that because I figured I'd get in trouble, but Zeke, I love you. Anyway, let's get more on the impeachment vote. We did get the resolution passed in the House. We have Nathan Hager coming to us from the 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan.
Indeed, Lisa, the House has set Donald Trump on a path toward becoming only the third president in U.S. history to be impeached. The lawmakers did pass that resolution mostly along party lines, 232 to 196. Only two Democrats voting against the measure that kicks off the public phase of Democrats' accelerating inquiry. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Capitol Hill.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi said the hearings and release of transcripts of closed-door witnesses will make the case.
Our procedures are more transparent, more open, giving more privileges to the president and his argument than were given in the past.
Republican Whip Steve Scalise said committee chairmen will have the power to rule on requests from Republican members.
We're not getting that fairness today. Maybe in the Soviet Union, you do things like this where only you make the rules.
Scalise was one of the Republicans who disrupted a closed hearing where officials were disputing the president's account of his Ukraine dealings. On Capitol Hill, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
And ahead of the vote this morning, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway was complaining about the process so far.
Why not just afford the president and other witnesses the due process protections from the beginning? Why have some of this in secret and then just come out and selectively leak?
And in a statement just released moments ago, White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham says Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats' unhinged obsession with this illegitimate impeachment proceeding I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down